Nick Mirkovic and Alex Tomic. Hey guys, welcome to The Mentor.
Thanks for having us.
Where are you now?
We're on the Gold Coast at our headquarters, so we're located in Burleigh Heads.
You're in Burleigh. So I heard my producer saying to you, thanks very much for arranging the difference in time because you guys are an hour behind us. And I heard her say, "What time did you get up?" So what time did you get up?
So we're usually up at 4:30 in the office, 5, train for about an hour, and then we're getting stuck into work. So yeah, we're pretty lucky with this facility. It's a big facility here on the Gold Coast. We've got a gym here, we've got a cafe, so we pretty much can spend most wake hours here.
So you're in lockdown all the time, sort of thing.
Pretty much.
Yeah,
Nothing's changed.
pretty much. Yeah, nothing's changed. So that's cool. So you're early risers and you get that shit out of the way so you can get your day done. Yeah. And does training energize you?
Oh yeah, 100%. Definitely gets you ready for the day. Definitely prefer it in the mornings, if anything. Gets you in the right mindset, I guess.
So if you don't train, what happens?
I think you just start on a flat foot and you start. It's just not as positive. I think we've got a really good team here. So it's not just a solo session. We're always doing something together, whether it's a run, a gym session, playing some sort of game. We're always doing something as a crew, which just gets you in the right headspace because otherwise you're just jumping headfirst into work and solving problems. But if you can start with a little different challenge to free your mind and almost just have a bit of a release, it's always made a massive difference in our day.
I guess everyone's always interested in, I am anyway, in the routines of others, particularly if they're successful. I'm also interested in the routines of others who are unsuccessful too, because that's a thing maybe to avoid. You guys are successful. Once you finish your training, what do you do for breakfast? Like, what's your deal?
So we've got a little cafe here, and generally for me, I get oats of morning.
Yeah, I'm pretty standard, just the same bacon, eggs, avocado. And I seem to always do the same thing every day. Nothing really changes the pattern too much.
And what about you, Nick?
I've been consistent lately. I've just been consistent on the oats. Light on the stomach gets me started in the day and it works really well for me. So tend to eat probably around 6:45 or say 7 a.m. while we're working and then continue to work throughout the day.
And caffeination, what's the deal with there?
I'm definitely addicted to coffee.
Yeah.
Me, it's more just a nice taste. I'll have it a couple of times a week just as a little treat, but definitely not addicted.
So in terms of your training routine, would you train every day you're at work or every day?
Probably one day a week off. So either Saturday or Sunday, depending how we're feeling. But with training, it just changes depending on what everyone's interested to do. Sometimes we split out in groups. We'll either go for a swim, a run. We'll go to the beach and potentially do some beach sprints. We'll do a gym session, cardio session, weight. So it alters every single day. And I think that's what keeps us interested. I think we always need to be switching it up and changing up the training. Otherwise we get a bit bored by that, but there's always something that we do, rain, hail or shine.
You say we, because is it just the two of you or there's a whole heap of you?
So it's the whole team here at HiSmile. There's, I'd say that do the workouts, 10 to 15 of us, pretty consistent with it. And we all sort of most of the time we do it together, sometimes a few different things, but most of the time we're in the same area and we do the workout together.
Is this part of your cultural build in your business? I mean, is that an important thing from a cultural point of view and or recruitment or retention, et cetera?
We don't really look at it necessarily for the retention. It's just something that we all get behind. We have a team where I guess we all want to stay healthy, be healthy and do those things. And I guess it's just a great time to get started together and push each other early. We're always doing something that challenges us, makes it almost impossible, or a target that seems impossible, from a hill sprint or a number of hill sprints that we then do. And so I think it's just really good to have that culture where we're all together, not necessarily something we've said, we need to do this for a better culture. It's sort of just naturally progressed as the team's gotten bigger. So
it's interesting. There's a lot of research on the importance of hanging out with your community. It can be your family, it can be whoever. There's a lot of research on how important it is for the brain and how it accelerates, enhances the production of things like dopamine and serotonin and all those sorts of things that make you feel good. If you have good levels of serotonin and particularly dopamine, you actually enables you to concentrate better, which means you should be, theoretically more productive at the beginning of the day compared to the end of the day, which is why I'm always interested in people's habits. I'm like you, I train early. This morning I trained at 3:45 because my fucking dog woke me up at 3 a.m. The dog's been away for a while, and he goes to a training camp, and he's a guard dog. He's a German Shepherd, and I get him trained up, and just give him a little taste of biting someone on the arm, and he has to go back for refreshers. It's a programmatic thing. They program him to do things on command. Anyway, we went away, and unfortunately, the dude that's training him is everyone in his business. He's got a great business. Someone got fucking COVID, and they had to close him down, so I couldn't get him back. So anyway, he got back last night, and he was a bit like, he sleeps in my bedroom, but he gets a bit. He just was used to sleeping out there, wherever. And anyway, he woke up at 3, and he was going around the house like creeping Jesus, I could hear his footprints going up and down the timber floor. It's freaking me out. I thought he was going to do a crap somewhere. So, so I got up and anyway, so I just took him. It was pitch black, and it wasn't raining, and so I thought I'd go for a run. So I went for a run with him at about 3:45. And he hasn't been on the lead with me for about a month, so it was a bit sort of stressful. But then it started bloody raining. I raced back home again. Then I went down. I got a little gym at my joint, so I went down. We've been in lockdown here, so everyone's got some sort of gym in the laundry or somewhere. Yeah. And I got a little gym at my joint, had to train. And I felt unreal, I felt really productive. And I thought how important these things are to me and to other people, I think, too. Mm. And, a lot of people are starting our business. They just dying to know what sort of pulls your chain, what makes you get motivated. Because as well as anybody, when you guys kicked off HiSmile, you get a lot of days it's just shit days because everyone just looks at you now and thinks, oh, wow, look how well they've done. They've killed it. But they forget about all the shit you put in before, all the stuff. How important was your routine during those periods?
Massive. And I think it continues to get more and more important. I think there's a lot of shit days when you start, but it continues because the stakes get higher. And when you start, you're young, you're naive, you're learning on the fly. So you're getting some wins, you're getting kicked in the guts as well. But I think you've got less to lose at the start. I think once you've built your business to where it's at and you've built a team as well, there's more reliance. And then you've got different external factors. You mentioned COVID, that's one that's affecting everyone obviously at the moment, and all these other things. So I think it's always important to have a clear mind. And I think that's what exercise, or that's what a routine does. It gives you the clearest mind to make the best decisions and sometimes weather a storm. Because I think if you're in business for a long time, the longer you go on, the more there is, I think, to lose as well, and the bigger the risks are, the more you're trying to tackle too. So there's always going to be ups and downs. There's going to be great days and shit days, but I think the routine keeps you centered and level-headed and lets you attack the day the best you can.
When you're under pressure, your body produces something called cortisol. It's a sort of a stress hormone that allows you to fight or flight. That same chemical does something else to the rest of your body, and that is it takes away all your rationality. It takes away your judgment. It reduces your ability to think clearly and, as I said, logically, and basically just puts you in a position where you're either going to fight and you can go berserk, or you can take off. So if you're in a constant mode of stress, you can run the risk of not making good judgments because your natural instinctive ability to be able to make good judgments is impaired because there's chemicals floating around your system. And one of the things that exercise does, and also hanging out with your mates, your gang, your community, and it sort of becomes meditative. You guys might be someone might be setting what seems like an impossible task, but all of a sudden you concentrate on that task and you move away from that stressful moment of what the business thoughts might be that's running through your brain, that's been going through your brain all night, and put you in a bit of a meditative state. And then that meditative state that allows you to readjust outside of business. And then if you can do it with your colleagues and your friends and you can have a laugh at the end of it and then a cup of coffee and a feed, to me it's like critical to being successful at business. I just don't think it's us guys hanging out here having a mag about it and sort of, glad handing each other and patting each other on the back, saying, oh, yeah, how cool is it we get up at 4 o'clock or something. It's actually part of the structure of running a good business or part of the structure of being successful. or equipping yourself or putting yourself in the optimized position to do all the things we're going to talk about in a second about what you've done at HiSmile. It's all very well to have a really good plan. It's all very well to have a fucking great product. It's all great in your case. You got to hang out or got to some really unbelievable influencers, etc., who talked about your product. But at the end of the day, you guys have got to execute, and everyone around you's got to execute around all that stuff. It's a continuum. It's just got to keep going. Everybody who I know who's managed to do what you do and keeps executing the way you execute has a routine. Because as soon as I saw you, and I read about you last time, but as soon as I saw you this morning, I just got my feeling, the sense that you give me is you're cool, chilled, but committed. Yeah. Okay, let's wheel back a little bit. You're 27s around that period right now. When did you kick the HiSmile off? How many years ago?
So that was coming on 7 years. So I was 19, Alex just turned 20. So yeah.
Right, so a couple of young blokes. What were you doing before that?
So before that, I did 6 months of studying at university. I knew very, very early on that it just wasn't for me. So had that discussion with the parents, had to humble myself and say, look, this isn't for me, but it wasn't just, all right, I'm quitting and going to do something. I gave them my word that I'll move on to something, and whatever I did, I'll do it 100%. So I had that discussion with them, and it was sort of at the same time when Nick came back from overseas, trialing for a professional team over in Scotland and England. And then I guess all the stars aligned, and it was at that time when we sort of just started discussing things, and we're sort of on the same page with everything, obviously being family, friends, but just the way we critique things, the way we looked at certain brands, the way we sort of saw this opportunity of everything moving online. And I guess that discussion sort of evolved, and from there we sort of took things further.
Yeah, but how does that happen, Alex? Like, can you tell me about the moment? Were you just having a beer or something? Or what were you doing?
I guess we were always inquisitive. The one thing that we both had, and we still have today, we're so inquisitive of the way certain people do see things, or the way certain products look, or whatever that might be. And we both had that very sort of inquisitive nature. And it was really just long discussions frequently. And we saw, and from those discussions, we saw that there was something very clearly happening in front of us that we both had that discussion, let's jump into, which was the landscape of business was moving from this traditional way to going online, and this new social media sort of breakout was evolving from influencers to advertising. It was a completely new landscape that we saw no one was sort of utilizing, or no one had really done properly. So from there, obviously discussions started happening. We identified a very clear, at the same time, a lot of our friends and family were getting their teeth whitened, and there was a consistent theme. No one enjoyed the process. It was a very, I guess, painful, and just the process as a whole wasn't something that people would recommend someone to do again. And we knew instantly there's something here that can be done. Again, the thing that we were young, we were naive. And I guess that naivety gave us the ability to just challenge and ask the questions and push us into the right places and get us in touch with the right people. So it started really from just us being inquisitive, being sort of aware, and then taking that to the next step, and things just evolved from there.
You just said three really important things. One, you were both observing the rise of online businesses. That is a significant observation. The second thing you said is that you saw the opportunity with influencers. We're talking about 7 years ago. And the third thing you said, which, like, you know, to be honest with you, until not more recently, like over the last 3 or 4 years, I mean, I didn't know anyone who got their fucking teeth whitened. I mean, you know, you watch the morning TV show and everybody had blonde hair, tan skin, and really bright teeth. And I used to think, wow. But I didn't think that everyone's going out and getting their teeth whitened. But there in those three things are product, a way of marketing that product through influencers, and finally a way of distributing that product online. Therein lies a business plan. Did you know that you had a business plan at that point?
Not really. We didn't know we had a business plan. We know we had an idea. We had I guess you could say there was a bit of a plan to the method to the madness, but we thought we had a reasonable idea, and we thought we had a way to solve that problem with the product, which we did. And then through the influencers, that kind of came organically. Spotting that, it was a no-brainer to send that product to as many people to get feedback from. And because it was so new, the space, influencer marketing, and because the style of our product in teeth whitening, in the nature of how we sort of put that together, it was so unique, and the product worked amazingly, and people who had teeth whitening previously and used our product had amazing results without any of the sensitivity and pain. They were straight away jumping online and leaving reviews, sharing with their friends and family, sharing it on Instagram, and that sort of just started to snowball and grow organically. And that's when we started to, I guess, plan a little bit more how we could take this business and this brand to the next level.
HiSmile is a fucking really good name, okay? It's sort of like my old name, my business name, Wizard. I mean, for some reason, it was really good. I've never been able to repeat as good a name.
Yeah, we sort of just had a bit of a discussion to say, okay, we need to create a brand name that was very short and succinct, something that obviously correlated to the industry we were going into. And it was really just us looking at a range of names we wanted something with. So obviously HiSmile is a shorter name, one word, and it's very easy. Obviously it makes sense to fit within the oral care category as well.
You're very understated, Alex. Both of you. You're so understated, it's ridiculous. You're right, it's one word, HiSmile. It's easy to remember. HI is so simple. It's such a commonly used word, high. It is easy to spell, very easy to remember. You had strong letters in there, a bit like virgin, wizard, suffixes and prefixes, and HiSmile actually fits all the categories. It's not just a cute name. It doesn't even have to be likable. It just has to be memorable. And what makes things memorable is the sound, the simplicity, the commonality, but also the novelty. What's the message that you're trying to deliver to everybody around the word?
Well, for us, it was always accessibility. I think if you looked at our sector, if you looked at teeth whitening where we entered the space, it was always the price points were really high. The experience wasn't pleasant. And it was always this niche group that was going to get it done. For us, it was about making that accessible to a wider audience, a wider market. And then you see that from the range of products that we're bringing out outside of teeth whitening. For us, it's about making in oral care, making it accessible and making it as accessible as possible. So I think it's providing that smile to everyone.
To you, does accessible also mean affordable?
Affordable, and the most important is simplicity to use it, because I think there's a lot of hoops to jump through when we entered the market to use at-home product. We really simplified that. So I think that's what we look at when we develop products. In this space, it's making sure it is accessible, it's simplistic, and as affordable as possible. And that's why we're trying to obviously branch out and bring out different products, different ranges to make it even more and more accessible. Prior
to you and people like you coming along, if we want to get teeth whitened, we went to the dentist, and as you said, it was a painful experience or a punishing experience or a scary experience. It was probably expensive. Therefore, not many people did it. Along comes the technology, but the technology on its own is not enough. You need to make it into a business model for it to be sustainable for the future, for it to have that net effect of changing the way people get this particular thing done. But what you guys just said was very important. You had a simple product, you kept it simple, you made it accessible, you made it affordable, and you took some technology that already existed and you turn it into a business model. And I think that's a good place for us to sort of take pause and go to the break and come back, because that's all very good. They're what I call necessary ingredients, but they're not sufficient for success. To be successful, you've got to execute. How the fuck did you guys execute it? Two young blokes. I mean, where did you do it? How'd you do it? How'd you raise the money? I mean, I just want to know what you did, how you did this. So, and how'd you market the bloody thing? And how'd you get to some of these really famous influencers you got to? So let's go to the break. Let's come back and we'll talk about execution. I'm back with Nick and Alex, and they are the co-founders of HiSmile, which is a very successful teeth whitening business, amongst other things. Unbelievably committed to their business. How did you go about finding this technology that you use in HiSmile?
Yeah, so going back 7 years, as we said, so we identified first what the problem was, knew very clearly what that problem was. And then it was a matter of just honestly rolling up the sleeves and speaking to every person we possibly could around the world, from professors to manufacturers. We knew that the common problem was this sort of main ingredient that you needed to get your teeth whitened with, which was hydrogen peroxide. Now, hydrogen peroxide is a form of bleach, so it's a specific oxidant. But we knew that there were a range of other oxidants that could do the same job of whitening, but could do it without causing the sensitivity, without burning the gums. So that led us astray. We, as I mentioned, we spoke with all the leading minds, and we came across this very, very unique ingredient of PAP, which is an alternative oxidant. And essentially this oxidant does exactly what was mentioned before. It does the amazing job of whitening, but it cannot burn your gums. It won't give you sensitivity. Now, we thought we solved the problem. However, came the next problem of, okay, we have this new thing. How do we create an amazing formula, as it had certain problems around how do you make it stable, how do you reach a higher pH. This was sort of the evolution of PAP from where we started to where we are today. And we brought on an amazing team internally of R&D and scientists, and we sort of evolved and came to reaching the target of putting this into a take-home product that was stable, that had maintained a neutral pH, and it was the first time this had ever been done. Meanwhile, this ingredient has been around for a very, very, very long time, or this oxidant. We just saw the opportunity to bring this into teeth whitening, as that's where we saw it had the best benefits. So fast forward 7 years, obviously now we see our R&D and our sort of science team at the forefront of everything we do, product development. I think you hit it on its head before, talking about it's one thing having the amazing idea and really understanding, okay, how do we now push this out? So identifying, okay, bringing this into the landscape of online. And I think the evolution of where you start to where you go doesn't always stay the same. So being online now, we're looking at retail play. How does that look for HiSmile? How can we make online and retail work well? We're now working very closely with dentists to see the product is so amazing. How can we make this accessible for the dental professionals? I think all brands and all businesses start the same way. You focus on one thing, that being online. We're just the one very simple product that we believed in and that we thought was amazing. And that's now sort of growing, and the evolution of that has been amazing. That's the growth in the last 7 years of going from online. We're now exploring retail, and we're really excited about this next journey of how this progresses. Obviously, marketing and advertising, that has evolved, working with some amazing people on that side, really understanding our product and how that looks and how that's moving. But I think going back again to what you said, it starts with a very simple idea. You come to something very amazing, which we came across with PAP, and then how do you progress that forward? How do you not just rely on that to sort of be everything, but how do you grow from that? So expanding out the product range.
Well, guys, but how do the two young blokes in their 20s get to talk to, leading academics and professors, and
LinkedIn and Google?
You just keep beating doors down, or what?
Yeah, kept beating doors down, LinkedIn and Google. And the thing with a lot of the academics that we worked with, they had a great idea, but they didn't have a method of commercializing that idea. So for us, it was about understanding different technologies that were being discovered outside of peroxide and working with the right minds and speaking to enough people to at least half educate ourselves in that. And I think if you're in business, you have to be a little bit relentless. If you've got an end goal of where you want to get to, you have to knock on enough doors, and eventually someone's going to answer. So we spoke to people from all over the world. You're talking Belgium, Netherlands, the UK, here locally in Australia. We also looked at Thailand, the US, Canada. We've literally high and wide from day one. That was the first thing we did, because like you said and like Alex said, it's great having an idea or a rough business plan, but you gotta have a product, and you gotta have a product that works, a product that does what it says it does, and a product with a difference. Otherwise, you're not building a moat around what you do, and it's going to be easily replicable, and it's going to just have a short shelf life. And we knew from day one there was a big problem for us to solve. And as we've evolved, as we said, we started with accessibility, and we're still trying to be more accessible. Yes, online was more accessible than what our competitors, but now it's about looking at retail and being accessible to people who don't shop online, or people who are committed to certain retailers, being accessible in that respect, being accessible from price point as well. While our product came in at a point that was cheaper than where people were getting their teeth whitened with take-home kits from dentists or in-chair dentists, there are plenty of other supermarket brands out there, and by no means do we want to do that. It's more about offering different solutions and fixing different problems that come in from price points that are potentially around $15 to $20, all the way up now to almost $1,000 with our in-office whitening that we're about to launch exclusively with the dentists and with the professionals. So yeah, accessibility is still very, very important for us.
Sounds like to me, you guys spent probably a third of the last 7 years just working out your product.
Evolving the product, absolutely. And still to this day, that it's not, we're constantly looking to improve, and not just our hero product, but all products. Sort of where it's at today is just that's something we're looking to progress in the next 2 to 3 years. Our R&D team, we have the brightest minds there who are never sort of satisfied with where it's at and are constantly looking to take it a step further. And I think it's a key to have that, where you're not just happy and okay with where it's at today, but you have so much more faith that you can improve everything, no matter how good the product is. And we know that today we still have the best product on the market, and we're still the first ones looking to make that something better, and that's across all range, whether that means adding additional ranges and whatnot. But something that I heard which really sort of spoke volumes to me is looking at the range and identifying, okay, how do you create a range that has a good, better and best offering, so that anyone of any likeness can afford the product and it does give them what they're looking for. You've obviously got your top tier products, which is now moving into dentists, and we're working with dentists to offer that, which is a very super concentrated version that requires a medical professional to put it together and put it on your teeth, which will get the fastest results, which comes with a higher price, and then scaling that down and really reaching those different people. So I think through that good, better, best, it's a good, better, best offering at the same time of what that product does and what the expectation is to match the price point, to match where it is.
Let's talk about the cool shit. Let's talk about influencer marketing. What made you first think that you can use influencer marketing, and then what made you think that you could get to some of the influencers you actually got to, and how the hell did you get to them?
Yeah, so if we take it all the way back, I think we started off our own back. We saved up money, meaning we had limited funds. We didn't have big budgets to advertise and market the product. So we knew we had a product that had the wow factor. As soon as you saw it, and then as soon as you used it, you were amazed. And like you said, influencer marketing wasn't really a known thing. So people weren't paying influencers to promote their products as frequently as they are today. So our strategy was, okay, we don't have a marketing budget. However, we've got some stock. So let's put our products to use. Let's get that product in the hands of people who we believe had a bit of a following, had a bit of an audience. Let's get them to purely give us their feedback and their insight, and we believe the product will do the rest. And we got that product out to, I think it was like, we started small, 20, 30, 40, 50, and then every day we'd send out more and more products. And eventually got a couple hundred influencers out there, or back then people who tried the product, loved the product, and felt like they wanted to share it to their audiences organically. And that was predominantly through Instagram. And what we were seeing is we're getting orders from that. We're getting customers come back, repeat purchases. Those people wanted the product more and more to promote it to their audiences. And then that influencer marketing cycle for us sort of really started organically out of looking at a challenge, looking at a problem where we didn't have a marketing budget. However, we wanted to grow this business, and that was our kind of strategy and our way to do it. So then when you look forward and you scale up forward, it was like, okay, there's awareness there. There's people with awareness. There's people who have an audience who can really communicate the benefits of the product. We have an amazing, and had back then an amazing product. However, it's hard to sometimes explain the technicality behind the product and the science behind the product. Instead, it's far easier for someone to kind of relay their experience with the product and their experience with a past product that they maybe used in the same space. We found that was a really simple way to communicate that, rather than trying to break down the science and really, really go hard in the difference between our product and a peroxide-based whitening product. We were like, okay, if we can get people with an audience to relay just their personal experience, that will make it much easier for us to do that marketing job. And that's how we slowly scaled up, and then you start small and then you get a little bit bigger. And when we're really ambitious and we wanted to crack a market like the US, for us it was super important to be speaking to the biggest and the best people who had the biggest audience to then try the product and obviously relay that message. So that's when you're looking at your Kardashians and the Conor McGregors of the world.
Either you guys are sort of incredibly humble or you just don't know what the fuck you've done, like it's too big. As you're young and you think, well, shit, it's not that big a deal. But yeah, like you just said, oh, well, we just reached out to, 100 or yeah, but like, how did you decide who's an influencer? Maybe we'll be an influencer. How did you find out where the hell you send the shit to? What's their address? Someone could send someone here to me. Well, I wouldn't even get to see it because it just gets sort of intercepted by about 1,000 people, and I don't even get to see it. How do you get to these people?
For us, for the small influencers at the start, it was a lot of DMs. It was messaging a lot of people. And then as you scale up, it's doing the same thing. You're going to get a lot of knockbacks, a lot of rejections. But as we started to get a bit more brand awareness in certain markets, we were able to work with bigger and bigger people. We didn't start from day one and want to work with a Kardashian or Conor McGregor or other big celebrities. We started from day one, built our brand, built some trust, built some reliability, and built an audience ourselves. And then slowly but surely we started speaking to the right people. And I believe we were speaking to an influencer who was one of the Kardashians' close friends. And then from there, that's how it sort of led into the web. We got our product in their hands. And then that's where the business conversation started after they approved and enjoyed and liked the product. So yeah, I think in business, persistence is a big thing. I think you got to be persistent. You can't throw in the towel. I think if you throw in the towel from any time you get rejection, you're not going to survive even a minute, let alone years. So for us, it's constant, persistent, big vision, big goals, and knowing where that North Star is, because I think that's what keeps you persistent and keeps you hungry and keeps you going.
How the hell did you get to Conor McGregor? Did you DM him or?
No, for Conor, it was through an agency. So this was back when Conor wasn't small, but he wasn't what Conor McGregor is today. So he didn't have the endorsement deals flying at him like he does today. It was when he was sort of midway through his UFC career. We started the early conversation, and that took a long time as well to get over the line, because I think the big thing with these influence, a lot of people think it's an easy thing. You kind of give a bit of money and they're going to promote whatever they want to promote, but it's very, very different to that. I think you have to build a relationship. They have to love and enjoy the product. So that means sending a lot of samples, a lot of products, not just to that influencer, but to people around them that they trust, approving of the people behind the brand, approving of the brand, and then most importantly, approving of the product. But yeah, through his sports agency that directly managed him, and then long conversations. It was funny because one of his closest at that agency is actually an Australian guy. He studied here just around the corner from where we live, albeit he's living over in California now. So it was just funny because that's how we sort of connected. And I think that maybe made us closer, and that made him sort of listen and want to get the deal over the line. And yeah, one thing led to another. So that was a crazy time, but that was awesome. I think Conor did an amazing job for us to open up another market. Like we said, a lot of influence, a lot of people have audiences that they can speak to. And for us, if they're able to open up different networks and open up different doors for us, that gives us a lot more opportunities, I guess, to open up the brand to people that may not have seen the brand, and again, making it more accessible.
Did you get to talk to him? Did you speak to Conor himself? You chat to him?
Yeah, we did. We had a good chance to go over to a few of his fights, meet in person, and that was amazing. So for us, likewise, it's important to connect with the people that we work with as well as best as we can. Obviously, COVID makes it tough, but when times are different and we could travel, we were over there. We obviously met with the Kardashians, met with Conor and his team and all of that, which was awesome.
That's pretty cool. And would you say today, though, that if you were kicking off HiSmile, that you would be able to get to the same sorts of individuals, or would you rather or do you think you should be looking at maybe micro influencers?
I think it's important to even look at the landscape and look at how things change. When we started the business, cost of advertising across digital influencers was something that was new. So it was quite a light cost. You were investing predominantly, which was amazing for us, in R&D and product development, and the rest was just hard work from us and getting that out there. Now you have to be a bit more resourceful and look at where the attention is and how do you get that product out there. It might mean, I think people get really romantic with e-com and online businesses, but it might mean sometimes you have to open doors in other ways, and look and consider retail as an option with a nice partnership. I think you have to look at other avenues and be really resourceful, as you did anytime in starting a business. But I think romance is something that gets to a lot of people. A lot of people focus on what others are doing and want to emulate that success. They see a brand solely sold online and they think that's amazing, or they see a brand doing amazing things through retail and they think that's the way to go. I think you got to sit down, you got to understand first and foremost what's the problem you're going to solve, and then from there you can work out how you're going to get that running and how you're going to get that going, and be okay with having some small wins. I think time, business, landscape is always going to change. It's always going to evolve and adapt. I think it's important for people and individuals who are looking to get into business or are in business to adapt with that as well.
I think you're right. That's a really good point you just made, Nick. I've got to be careful I don't romanticize people like you, what you've done, because it's a great story. I mean, and I equally got to be careful I don't sort of romanticize what I did in my wizard business, because whilst it's a great story, it doesn't mean it's repeatable. In fact, you know, I couldn't do wizard the same way today as I did it back then. And you probably can't do HiSmile the way you did it back then. You'd have to do it differently. So your advice, you know, is quite sage advice coming from a 27-year-old, but your advice is, look, sit back, look at the landscape, look what's available. But most importantly, don't look at what someone else has done and sit back and say, well, I'm going to copy them and I'm going to do what these two boys just did. Adoration is irrational by definition. And you've got to be very rational with your process and what you're going to do and how you're going to build out this business. Then when it comes to the marketing piece, that's where people romanticize. Wouldn't it be good if I could get one of the Kardashians to, you know, try this, whatever the hell it is, these new earrings or something like that. And they do what you do. They start sending shit to them. But, you know, these people get everything sent to them. What would you say is the way people should look at marketing of their great idea? How should you look at it today?
I'd evaluate the landscape as we did back in the day. If you master supply chain today, there's a lot of brands doing that in every single space and sector. That's not going to be a big enough differentiator. You have to look at the landscape today. Where can you find that gap? Where can you be different? Through product, through the way you market, through the way you push it, understanding the cost of the landscape, and then that's how you'd go forward and attack it. The cost of advertising on Facebook today, sky high compared to when we started. The cost of influencers, sky high, but there's other avenues and other resourceful ways to get out there. People are rubbishing things like retail, but retail's massive. Retail's a huge opportunity for brands. So I think evaluate the landscape and don't just look at someone else's journey, understand the journey you're going to go on. When we come back to accessibility where we started, we're actually not accessible if we're not available at dentists and we don't have an offering there. Like Alex said, the good, better, best lives strong, and it's important to provide things at different price points for different customers.
What are the sorts of things that HiSmile is planning for now in terms of new products?
Well, I think going back to it, teeth whitening being our primary category, it's expanding that right out. So we still haven't hit the point where we can speak and have an offering for every single consumer. We have this remarkable thing in PAP. It's a matter of how do we now bring this into, so we have it now in a toothpaste. How do we bring it into additional product? So the toothpaste is already out. So it includes the same PAP ingredient. Now quite uniquely, as it doesn't burn your gums, as it doesn't cause sensitivity, we can actually make it much stronger than any other whitening toothpaste on the market for its intended purposes. So we've solved that problem there. Again, the difficulty came around how do you actually formulate it into a toothpaste, being so new and so novel. But again, thanks to our amazing R&D team for really sort of just taking that forward and pushing the limits of what we can do. Now looking at the mouthwash side, in 2 weeks, we're bringing it into a strip concept, which makes it a much more affordable product. Obviously, the give and take is it's not the quick 10 minutes. You're now having to do a 30-minute session with the strips, but you're getting exceptional results, and we've really solved some incredible problems on that side. Last week, we launched an incredible product. So we looked at the market, we saw our R&D team identified that, imagine purple shampoo, how if that was to be brought on into sort of oral care, it would have these same benefits. Now the difficulty again came, how do you utilize that technology but for it to attach to the pores of the teeth and counterbalance the yellow tones and bring it to a white? our team struck an amazing product, the V34. We launched that last Wednesday. It's already sold out in the US and Europe. We're sold out within a week and a half in UK and Australia. So it counterbalances the yellow tones and increases the brightness of your teeth. Same way if you get your hair bleached, it goes that orangey yellow color. You then put the purple toner, purple shampoo, and it brings it to that more whitey color. So depending on time. We're just looking at the teeth whitening category alone. We still have beyond that so many more product concepts that can come into it. Everything from everyday toothpastes that we believe could very easily sit in the fast-paced grocery retailer. And for us, we're not closing any doors. We're open to looking absolutely everywhere, thinking how can we create products and ranges that really can cater to all needs. We have this amazing brand that we've built in the last 7 years, obviously centered around one focus, which is teeth whitening, and we've slowly been expanding that out. We've recently launched a enamel care booster, which essentially strengthens the enamel, something that has absolutely gone crazy in the market. So yeah, I think it's never ending. I think the thing that we've identified is creating remarkable products allows for everything else to follow. So marketing is a no-brainer if you have an amazing product, if you create or solve a problem in the market, and we're just looking to solve as many problems as we can.
That's very interesting. I've been asking all the questions. Have you guys got a question for me?
Yeah, I think what are your plans? What are your plans for the podcast now as well? Where do you sort of plan to pivot and plan to go?
Good question. I often try to think, I keep interviewing all these people like you who are making millions out of your businesses, online businesses, and I keep thinking, well, should I start to invent a product and start to push it through to my audiences, etc. And but I get so caught up in interviewing people like yourselves that I just tend to try to build the audience and just keep putting out good content, and as opposed to keep thinking about what I could sell sell alongside my content. So my podcast is pretty much, I'm just being a publisher. I'm just trying to publish good stories and pay forward what I learn from those good stories. Like, for example, what I'm learning from you today. So, my audience tends to, I have another podcast called Straight Talk, which is a different podcast. It's a podcast, but it's different to Mentor because it's more about talking. It's called Straight Talk because there's no bullshit. I talk straight about topics that a lot of people might not want to talk about, and I've got a whole lot of cool stuff I want to do down that track. I love to go down. I'd love to go out and talk to someone about black magic. I'd like to talk to someone about UFOs. Some cool shit. And so it's more I guess a folly of my own. And then in terms of the podcast, the Mentor, people like you are really important. You need to listen to people like yourselves. And it may be that you not necessarily follow them and don't be romanticized, as you said earlier on, by what you've done, but at least know what other people have done and know maybe how to do that in the current era. Because, what you did is historic. But there's some things that never change either. And we said this right at the very beginning of our podcast. Routine, regimentation, socialization, physical health and mental health, community, colleagues, they're things that never change. There's no modern version of that. That you got to keep doing that no matter what your business model is. So that's what I'm doing in my podcast. And I guess one day I might come up with a product and start pushing a product through. But right now it's probably more me just enjoying myself being a publisher and trying to be real. Yeah, you guys are killing it. Seriously killing it. And what's even more perfect about what you're doing, you're doing it from the Gold Coast. That's really getting your act together. Yeah. And that's the most impressive part for me, apart from your youthfulness. But the most impressive part for me is you got it together.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Really appreciate it.